Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad that you're joining us again today. Wasn't that fabulous? Did you think that A Better World has a new beginning? In fact, it does. Today we have Chitra Neogy with us, filmmaker, poet par excellence, producer of that wonderful film Journey Within a Journey, on her last journey to India. When her father died, she went and made this fabulous film, getting in a sense re-enchanted by the magnificence of the Indian culture from which she originally came. So Chitra, we're so glad to have you on the show.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for that magnificent footage. It's really, as I told you when we first spoke about it after I saw it, I was so moved by it. I was speechless. And it's not easy to render that result. It was really, I felt like it hit me in a very deep emotional place. And that came from both the subject matter as well as the visuals. The sequence of visuals were so potent, and I felt like it was transporting me to a very ancient time, a very ancient land that continues to live really very vibrantly even into the present century. And you captured, I feel, that essence of India. And there are many essences of India, but this was one or several amalgamated that you really got your hands on and have brought here, and I'm just very thankful. I'm very glad to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. What was it, if you would just share with the audience a little bit, that motivated you to do this in the first place?
Actually, I didn't physically go to India after my father had passed on, but I was in India doing a research for an Austrian film company.
Oh, I see.
And they wanted to do a documentary with very, very unusual, almost extinct folk forms. And the people who were involved had seen some of my work and were very sort of, they really wanted me to be their creative eye, in a sense. I was to spend 6 months in India, and then I went to India, and that's when my father was not well. And,
I see.
And he passed on. I was very devastated by that, and I then started this whole research, in a sense, completely disoriented, shaken. You know, from India, being from India, we have very much the sense of the eternal nature of the soul, that the spirit absolutely lives on, and the body and the physical aspect of life is impermanent, but not the essence of life. And I grew up with that very much so, because of my background and my family. I was very much with that thought. And also, as I grew up, I think I very much grew with that. But when he left, something just shattered in me. And it was wonderful that I was in India then, and that I just took some cameras and I just went into villages. I was in about 12 states and went only into the villages of India, and slowly began to come to terms with the loss through these simple people. You didn't even begin to see them in the film, but they're like about 12 different kinds. And their simplicity and their sense of this absolute, they're so in the sense of the spirit, completely. There's no show, there's no pretense, it's completely there. And they assured me that he was right there. And, of course, deep down I knew that, but I was momentarily so devastated.
Oh, sure. So they, in a sense, they were exemplifying a faith that is uncommon these days, a faith in the eternalness of the spirit.
Yeah.
And they were reminding you very powerfully that form is only form.
Absolutely.
And your father lives on
Yeah.
in spirit.
Yeah. And so when I came back, that film was done, the documentary, and I just was, the process was like a slow transformation within me. And from that grief, as I was filming them and they were talking to me, there were beautiful forms where they would draw the goddess and they would offer the form to the soul of my father. I began to feel this elation. So from that grief, there was a sense of celebration coming in me naturally, you know. And there were moments when I would think, what's happening? So when I came back, I thought,
why am I feeling elated?
Elated?
My father just passed on.
You know. And then I came back, I thought,
because he's with me.
Exactly. And I decided I had to visualize it. And first, the original thought was the whole of India, and then I realized it would be impossible, so I chose Kerala because the forms there are just super, super surrealistic and very amazing. And
now, you are from the Kerala state?
No, I'm from Bengal.
Oh, you are?
I'm from Bengal.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so what was your relationship? Were you at all connected to Kerala as a child?
No, but you know, I've done a lot of work for the Government of India Tourist Office, and I've shot in Kerala a lot. There are a lot of similarities between Kerala and Bengal, but I chose Kerala without even thinking, because when I found these, they're called temple art forms. They're all like 5,000 to 7,000 years old. They all worship Kali. In Bengal, we worship Kali. That was a big point for me.
I see.
The masks and the mask-like makeup faces were very abstract. And I love surrealistic art. It's very surrealistic, and all the mythology behind these forms was the triumph of light over darkness, and life over death. So that's what I was grasping, you know, and I completely identified with them. And I can't explain they really did something to me, and that state is beautiful.
Let's just share with the audience a word about your own background, because you grew up in India, but at a fairly young age you went and studied theatre in London. Is that so?
I did. I graduated in Calcutta University, and I was for a few years at Shantiniketan, Rabindranath Tagore's School of Fine Arts.
Oh, wow.
And while I was graduating, which was sort of not done, but I could sneak out and do that. And then I went to RADA. I was at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, where I studied theatre and film.
Yes.
And worked very strongly as an actress and in theatre and film. And was a little jaded by the fact that I was always looked at as being very exotic, and that I was either to this or to that, and always fit into this kind of a box of exotic
character.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I always had a sense of vastness through the arts, and I couldn't verbalize it then, but I did a lot of things. I don't regret what I've done, but I always felt this is not enough, and I didn't know what was enough. But I felt that it was wonderful to do Shakespeare and to do all the classics, but to me, at the risk of being, I don't know what, I'm going to say this, it bored me. I felt I wanted more.
Speak up.
And I had a sense of...
I think Kevin Kline said the same thing, so you're in good company.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, if you see that he went from Shakespeare to a fish named Wanda and John Cleese, he certainly was implying it.
Right. And so, it was very wonderful that somehow this emerged where I could do this, and this journey, I think, is the first example of being able to have sort of, I'm in it, but I'm not in it as a performer. I'm in it like as a thread. You've seen the film.
Yes.
So I don't know where this creativity...
It's actually a very much a non-acting role.
Totally. And
you're incredibly real.
Yeah.
And very, in a sense, full of humility. You're very simple. You're almost transparent in a sense.
Oh, good. Because actually there was a woman from Austria who was going to come to India, and she had this incredible thing designed, what I should be wearing, etc. She sent the costumes, which we never got, and somehow I don't know what happened. She didn't show up, and I never saw the costumes to the end of the film. And it was perfect.
After it was shot.
Yeah, it was perfect, because it wasn't a film where I should have been wearing anything, It wasn't that. It was a process that I was going through. It had to be so completely that, and that's what it turned out to be.
Yes. So you've done a fair amount of acting, both Shakespearean and otherwise. And you're also really an accomplished poet.
Thanks.
I've had the pleasure of reading some of your material, and it's really very moving. And in fact, I really, now having met it on the page, I really hear that the film itself is composed largely of your poetry. The script.
It's all, I wrote the whole thing, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of poetry in it. You're
Very
right.
much so.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yes.
Yeah. And how are people seeing this film?
I finished it last year, and I've been presenting it at universities, museums. Mystic Fire is going to take it up this fall.
Excellent.
And I hope that they'll do, they're mainly video, but I really feel, because when I show it, I was just at Canada at the Toronto Royal Ontario Museum, and you see it on film, it's a whole different experience, and people plead, they ask
In the theater.
yes,
Yeah.
where can we see this? What? So I hope that it'll be both a theatrical release as well as a video release, and really aiming for that. But otherwise, I'm just walking with it. I go with it. I present. I speak. You know.
You were in D.C. Were you at the Smithsonian?
Yeah, I was at the National Museum of Women
National
in the
Museum.
Arts. Yeah,
Yes,
it was part
wonderful.
of the Environmental Film Festival, and then Toronto, and then Chicago.
Excellent. So it is getting out there.
It's getting out there, and unfortunately, you have these very stereotype distributors who have this very blunt kind of vision, you know, or how about no vision? And since it doesn't have the typical formula of a mainstream film,
Yeah.
they'll sort of look at it and say, well, they're just thinking about what they'll get back. In the meantime, when I do present it at select theaters like at Rhinebeck Upstate Films, it was packed. But they don't see it.
Because it's near Bard, where I went to college. Of course it was packed.
Yeah. So, but you know, how do you crack these kind of how do you call it, crusted visions? You know, and, like, come on, you know, let's open up here, and we have to work through them. If I had millions of dollars, I would just rent all the theaters and put the film in. But unfortunately, we're at the mercy of people who have no vision.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
Zero.
Well, it's very much a business, and
Yeah.
business reigns.
When will
Largely,
that end,
unfortunately.
Mitchell?
Huh?
I mean, when will that end, in the sense of when are we going to... I know alternative is becoming big,
Yeah.
and independent cinema...
Maybe
film.
it'll end next week.
Well, you know, it's about...
Maybe it'll end when people see this show.
That'd be great.
Let us pray. Yeah, well, things have got to shift because it's just getting a little too boring. I mean, this, if you want to put it into a category, I guess I would call it, which is a very broad category, an art film. And I say that because it's a way of recognizing its value, its artistic value, very much so. At the same time, taking it out of the mainstream, because it isn't mainstream, and at the same time, what it is a very, as I told you when I first saw it, a very raw portrayal of a woman and a landscape and a sea of feelings that arise when one loses someone as dear as one's own father. And I think one of the other things that's at play is the particular relationship between a father and a daughter, and the feelings a daughter has for her father that she will never have for her mother. It's just because they're categorically different. It's not a question of more, it's a question of quality. And you're dipping into the past of India and touching upon the life. You mentioned the simplicity of life. Well, there's also an incredibly colorful ritual life and ceremonial life. And as you also have mentioned, the play of life and death and that dance, this eternal dance. You've captured these things, and there is some sequencing, there is a narrative to it, and yet its power is not narrative.
No.
Its power is poetic.
Yes.
Its power is visual.
Yes.
And anyone who's paying attention will get really captured by that. So anyway, I just went off on a little soliloquy about it because I really really feel it's a gift to humanity.
How does the film fit? I know we met through someone who felt that I should meet you, who had seen your show.
Yeah.
And you saw the film first and read the poetry, and then you very much wanted to interview me. How do you feel that the film and this being who you're speaking to is relevant to your show? I'm asking you a question.
I see, okay. Changing seats here. I feel it's relevant because I feel it, number one, helps to show some of the depth and character of a better world. A world that is lost in the shuffle of contemporary life. lost in the shuffle of materialism, of ultra focus on a set of values that are not particularly rich, even though the focus is on riches. I think that's exactly the problem. I mean, for me, what this film does, Chitra, is bring forth the magnificence of ancient intelligence and ancient art forms and ancient religious forms. And this is full of life. This is full of spirit. This doesn't have to do with convention. And what I see, I mean, Aldous Huxley had to write a book called The Doors of Perception to give us some indication of how closed down we have become. And for me, my feeling is that this film really helped to expand my sense of the extraordinary and the beautiful gift that India and Indian culture has brought forth. And it's not just a whitewashing, it's not just the so-called goodness of India. It shows depth of character, depth of darkness, and the simplicity of the people and the confusion of people still is in there, which I think is a very realistic portrayal. So it's very raw, and in order to create a better world, I think that we need to be in the mindset of remembering that there is this incredible beauty in our collective human past. And I feel that you brought that right up to the surface for us all to review. That's what.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's been...
Did I answer your question?
Absolutely, and thank you. I absolutely am in sync with you. And I think that, it's been an amazing journey for me. I've spent 5 years doing the film, and it was a process completely of coming to terms with it emotionally, spiritually, and then again finding the monies to finish it. So I did the whole thing myself. So it's been a journey on all levels.
God.
And now
you could probably do a film on the journey of its making and its funding.
Yeah,
because that was quite extraordinary too.
Yeah. So now it's like it's opening up. It's out there, and I'm seeing the kind of reactions and the like from you and people.
Yes.
And so I feel it has its own life almost, like it's moving, and it's touching. So, it's been...
Well, we're out of time just about, but I really want to just thank you again and applaud your efforts in a real masterful piece.
Thanks.
Because I really feel it's a gift to humanity. And I want to see it again. In fact, when Chitra asked for it back, I had to say, you know what? I'd really like to keep it, if you don't mind.
I couldn't say anything, so he has it.
Because I do want to share it with others. So thank you again for your work and your contribution.
Thanks.
Absolutely, and great to have you on the show.
Thanks.
Yeah. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for a Better World. Thanks so much for joining us. Give a call at 212-420-0800. Look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you all next week.